The College of Business is excited to host this event here today to share with our faculty and our students and our community the wisdom, the insights, and the inspiration that drives this man who's meant so much to American culture today. So Russell, thank you for joining us today. What I thought we would do is start off a little bit and talk about a few things with Mr. Simmons' business ventures, his thoughts on current events today, and including in current business practices. But as we evolve through the afternoon, I'd like to move more into to fielding questions from the audience. So please be thinking about the questions that you would like to ask Mr. Simmons, and we will try to get to as many of those as possible. I would like this to be more about you than certainly about me. So let's get started. You have written a couple of different books. One of the most recent was a book called Super Rich, and so I was kind of curious as we get started here. It was the guide to having it all. What was it that drove you to write that book, and what was the main point that you were getting across in that?
A few years before that, I wrote one book, which my life story. Boring, leave that out. That's old. But then I wrote a book a few years ago, which was kind of after 20 years of studying yoga. I mean, reading all this scripture and just trying to and practicing. I wanted to simplify it, and it was such a cleansing process for me. And it was really a selfish motivation. Right? I wanted to put this stuff, simplify it, and put it into a book. And then Oprah took it and made it a big hit. And when she did that, people came up to me and told me that it affected their lives. And so this book was written with the intention to really touch people. Hopefully I had that in the beginning, but it also was this process of putting all this practice and study into the first book. This book, Super Rich, was written because I see a lot of people, business students alike, who miss the kind of motivation they need, the true motivation they need, or miss the understanding of what it is that motivates them. And so I thought I was capable, and I wrote it. And it actually, Oprah didn't like it, doesn't like the language in it. But it's okay, but it sold more than the last one, so it did good without her. So now I could tell her that too. It did better when you didn't talk about it. So the book, I got a half. It's interesting to bring it up first in front of business students because Business Week gave me a half a star. They shared this. It was 1 star between me and Deepak together. It's funny. I had written an endorsement of his book. He wrote an endorsement of mine, and then they took our books, our both business books, and gave us 1 star between us. But they forget the difference between going to work every day and being a sheep and being a creative entrepreneur there's a tremendous difference. And Super Rich was about the kind of inspiration that entrepreneurs have, and also original thinkers. And for them, there wasn't enough numbers, and there really wasn't a clear understanding of what it is that helps an entrepreneur find a white space to pursue, finds a business to invest in. And so he got 5 stars from Washington Post and other people, but the Business Week thing sticks in my head as a moment.
You had wrote in
the
that
book was, I'm sorry, I didn't even fucking answer. The question was, I think, about the book was about why we go to work every day and what inspires us, and it's a prosperity book to the extent that good givers, and it's about giving and how to give. Good givers are great getters. So it's about that subject.
Yeah, I would ask you to kind of expand on that, because one of the quotes from your book that I really liked was, in order to be a great getter, you have to be an even greater giver. And so what is it that you mean by that? What are some examples from your life, your business experience that reflects that sentiment?
An honest intention is always at the core, usually at the core of a worldly business success. I mean, I want to give people something they need. Hopefully, you're giving something they need that you approve of. If you're a vegan, don't have a steakhouse, something like that. But it's the idea of going to work and giving people something that you believe in, and make it an honest intention, more so that you give without so much. It's not about the expectation of receiving so much. There's faith in this idea that if you put your energy into something, it will give you a return. But there's something greater about loving something enough to want to share it. And I think that's a major motivation that we all should have if we want happiness and success.
In the music industry, you started working with Curtis Blow a long time ago, and something similar to that.
Before you were around.
Yeah, not much. And do you have any? What are some examples of how does giving, especially in that industry, giving your music away, help build a market for it?
From then till now, I mean, artists give their music, and now especially, it's mixtape after mixtape, right? They just give away their music. If you're in the music industry now, if you're a rapper or a singer or something, your music is always out there. You give it until people can't live without it, which is the way you become the top of your law firm as well. You know, the way you do everything. You just give until people can't live without you. You know, and music artists do that more often now, but have always done that. You know, that there's this gift that they have, they share it, and eventually someone buys it. But the idea of giving is a critical and basic kind of philosophy that you got to get into if you want to be a success, you know, a worldly success at least.
One of your other quotes that stuck out to me was, "Happy can make you money, but money can't make you happy."
Yeah.
What is it that you mean by that?
Well, money, it's like I can only sit my ass in one seat at a time. Like, that's it. Okay, how much, you know, I got a Maybach, but, you know, it's like there's still one seat and then the other seat's for somebody else. That's it, you know. So you got to learn to be, and this is life's goal, to be comfortable in your seat. I mean, that book is written based in the yogic scripture. It's what I've studied for the last 20 years and tried to live and share. So this is a fact, you know, operating from a comfortable space. Prosperity preachers give you the rap about operating from abundance. You know, needing nothing. My book, Super Rich, the definition of super rich is needing, a state of needing nothing, which is also the same definition as Christ consciousness to some, and nirvana to some, and taqwa for Muslims, and samadhi is what yogis refer to, a state of needing nothing. I couldn't call none of that shit because y'all would definitely not buy it, right? If I called my book Christ Consciousness by Russell Simmons, y'all, you know, we wouldn't be discussing it, right? But my brother's a prosperity preacher, and he kind of beat me up about the book. He was like too much about giving and didn't really explain, you know, enough about getting. So I opened up, and I wrote the book in 2 months, but 10 months later I came up with a truth that I'd known but didn't think of. Jesus taught 2 sermons. One to the masses. If you give, if you're a good giver, you'll be a great getter. That's the answer, which is what I just told you. But he taught his disciples, just give. And those people never had problem with the Romans and taxes and none of that shit because they made plenty of money. So it was, but this idea of giving, you know, and having faith that it'll have a return, but not putting too much weight on the return. And in fact, the less you put on that, the more your cycle of giving will speed up, the more you become an honest giver. So.
Well, let's talk about some of your business practices, your business enterprises that you're involved in. You had Def Jam Records at one time that you've sold. You have various clothing lines, Argyle Culture, the most recent one. You have globalgrind.com.
Argyle Culture is launching now in Macy after 4 years.
Yeah.
It takes time. Shit takes time. Nothing happens overnight. So Argyle Culture, even though it looks like it's old on my resume, it's new now. We're just now shipping a lot of stores.
Well, let's talk about that because you're entering lots of industries that are highly competitive, very difficult to enter. How do you bridge that gap? How do you make that start? How do you make that advancement? What is it that sets a person apart from the masses who say they want to do something but don't?
Well, like I said about Argyle Culture, my financial service company is crazy because I started it 8 years ago, and now I'm reading, you know, about it. It's been, I guess, 3 years we've been profitable, and now that Chase Manhattan and Walmart and American Express have all joined into our industry, which was an innovative industry when I was first. It takes time. You know, this idea you can't fail until you quit is one I keep saying over and over again. You know, and that's what entrepreneurs, I mean, everybody else can expect results quickly, but this idea of going to work on something you're passionate about and not quitting. I think I said it 8 times already, right? But it's true. I mean, Krishna says you have control over the work alone, but never its fruit. And it goes on to talk a lot, and this is in the Bhagavad Gita, well, different translations, but it talks a lot about this idea of work and passion and giving, and the fruit comes when it comes. So I've had the experience in all of these competitive industries to wait around for a long time. Fat Farm was not an overnight hit. It was a failure for 5 years. I had to shed my partners. In fact, Global Grind is just now becoming a really important site for political and social. I mean, we talk a lot about celebrities, but we do a lot of social and political stuff that makes a difference. We introduce discussions of everybody from Trayvon Martin to the kid killed in Wisconsin to a lot of social justice issues. That site, this idea of this integrated site, the way America could see itself, but not the media sees us, is that there is such thing as this new post-racial America. A small percentage of us are inspired by it, so much so that we have to have media and content that reflects it. It took a long time. I shed my partners, they quit. I buy them out, or they just quit. Fat Farm had partners and they quit. Def Jam had partners and they quit. So I had, I've had this experience over my financial service partners. Jesus, I had 3 sets. And then one day, it blew, and it became a very successful company. But it was something I had faith in. And I think it's hard work, dedication, and faith is the model. Resilience and faith is the model.
Well, let's talk about that, the rush card for a little bit, because that is a different type of model that has taken a little while to catch on. So kind of describe what led you to that idea and that.
Rush card's an interesting story. A guy came to me and said he'd like to get rappers to endorse his phone cards. And he explained to me enough. I said, well, why don't we just make this shit cheaper? Make the gift of communication. And I had this beautiful idea, this campaign before I had the wherewithal, and found out there was no way to give that gift. It's like if you own payday loan, you say, well, why are you charging 540% for a loan? How many weeks in a year? 53, 4? 520%. What? Because that's what it costs, because people default, and that's the only way they can survive. So it's the cost of doing business that kind of made it difficult.
What have been some of the biggest obstacles that you've overcome to be successful?
So I'm sorry, the question was about Rush Card and the way it was built. They came and it was impossible to do the phone card. So we created stored value. And when we created stored value for the phones, where people would pay the same rates, we thought we'd go to Visa, and I had a partner who did distressed debt. And he had billions of dollars in debt, $10, $15 billion in debt, and millions of customers who needed some kind of vehicle. They couldn't go to the check cashing place, get robbed, wait online to pay all their bills one after another, and then be locked out of the American dream. So this idea of stored value or being a virtual bank was our idea. And we couldn't access the clients because it just cost too much. And then we decided to go to Visa and ask them, could we go out into the marketplace? Is where the birth of those commercials and these things. And so people who would usually spend a fortune to get their check, access to their money, and then have these issues in terms of really being part of the American economic system, these people now had access. That was the idea of it. And there were so many millions who couldn't have bank accounts. And we built it for them. But then one year, 4 years ago, we looked at a JP Morgan report, and it said how much it costs to manage a bank account. And we realized that, and now we know, people who make less than $75,000 a year are more likely to operate much cheaper and more efficient with a rush card than with their bank account. So now millions of people are migrating from bank accounts to this form of banking. And we offer card-to-card transfers for 90 cents as opposed to $35. We offer budgeting tools, discount prescription drugs. We offer, you get your check 2 days before your check. That matters a lot of people, right? Keep you out of payday. If you can get a rush card and you're a direct deposit customer, you may get your check, and a great percentage of our customers do, 2 or 3 days before the check is cleared. That's a service we offer. So we keep creating new ways to be better than competitive, and we have to now. Again, Walmart and people have joined our business, which is good, but it was our innovation, and we want to still stay the most innovative. And that's the rush card.
How do you, these are quite disparate industries that you've entered into. How do you decide what's a good opportunity for you and what's not? What drives you to make that decision?
Well, the rush card was a funny thing. Again, it was about giving people access. I can barely count, and I'm a leader in a new financial service industry. It's odd. So it is odd, but it just felt like it was the right thing to do. People did not have access, and anybody who's ever been without a bank account and been in the position that a lot of Americans are in know how difficult it is to operate without plastic. It's very difficult. So that's why we got in that business. Other businesses are passion as well. I mean, I have 5 charities. I work in many social and political causes. So, having said that, a lot of my motivation is to find ways to help underserved communities, and that was appealing for that reason, and other things I like to use. Even my website, Global Grind, my media company, there's always some political or social thing. This morning I wake up and, the thing that happened with the filmmaker and the extremist who killed the ambassador. I'm the chairman of the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding. I issued a statement. The Rabbi Snyder, the chairman of the World Jewish Congress, and I are partners. We have dialogue with imams and rabbis all over the world. We have hundreds of programs where imams speak in synagogue and rabbis speak in mosque. So for us, that's a big deal. So having a media outlet to share my vision. Yesterday, day before yesterday, Jay-Z said something about Occupy. I was out in the street with Occupy every day, pretty much. And it was an opportunity to spread an idea that Occupy was about a real democracy, about building a democracy where the government is controlled by people and not money. That the politicians work for the people who elect them and not for the people who pay them, special interests in the corporations. And that's Occupy. And that's an American issue that has to be, and I think it's a legacy issue for the president. Campaign finance reform has to be a legacy issue if we are to have a real democracy. So having the website and dealing with celebrities who I love, and I help them build their charities, and I work with them in various different ways. But giving that website, I give some people the only politics they ever get. And it's a lot of them now. It's growing very quickly.
I do want to spend a little bit more time talking about the social causes that mean so much to you and why you devote so much of your energy to supporting those. I do want to mention, we'll start taking questions from the audience here pretty soon. If you have a question, we do have staff members are positioned around the audience who will can come to you with a microphone to get your question. So please start thinking about those and reaching out to our staff to help get those questions ready. But I do want to talk about Occupy Wall Street and a few other things as well. You were a high-profile supporter, following you on Twitter, regular tweets about the protests going on in New York and elsewhere. What was it about that meant so much to you? What is it about that issue that reflected the state of business ethics or ethics in business and government today?
I mean, business will do whatever they want, whatever they can. It's their job. They have a board of directors that sit around and say, how can we exploit people? I don't mean bad. Exploit sometimes means, get the best out of our relationships with these people. They're not people. They're there to exploit people. So something like Citizens United that allows corporations to put as much money into politics as they want is ridiculous. And something like a system where the politicians, have to be more beholden to the stockholders. The people, they own them. So they're investors, and the people who elect them is an issue. Occupy Wall Street instantly became Wall Street controls our government and not our people. The people don't control the government. Wall Street does. That has to change. Occupy Wall Street changed the dialogue from the debt ceiling and all the other shit and moved it right back to economic inequality. What does it mean that politicians can be bought? Well, for instance, if you're an African American, that's one of the things I said yesterday, and it's that 10 out of 11 people who go to jail for drugs are African American or people of color. So, well, damn, that's odd. So it makes already there's an inequality there, and they're 10 times more likely to go to jail for the same crime, because that makes sense because we all use and sell drugs at the same rate, don't we? I mean, I don't use no drugs. I'm a vegan now. But I was a kid, you know. I mean, we all use drugs the same fucking way, right? So it's all only people of color. But then you think about how the laws that don't work, how people who go to jail for small amounts of drugs, who are diseased people, go to prison for long periods of time, get educated in violent criminal behavior, and get dumped back into communities without a future or a chance for a decent job. These people poison the fabric of some communities. It destroyed, you could argue that it destroyed the fabric of underserved black communities. And that's because the prison industrial complex is able to give $10, $15 million to politicians, and then they can take many billions of dollars out of our tax dollars to incarcerate these diseased and educate these diseased people. It's one example. You know, why can some jobs go overseas? Not all. Many jobs go overseas because the politicians said so, but no good reason except they got paid. Many tax breaks. I know. I sold a couple of companies. My lifelong assistant is there. She's my boss. Simone is here. When I sell my company, she pays more taxes than I do. Right, Simone? Every time I sell a company, she pays more taxes than me. I mean, and then you got people saying, why don't you just pay more taxes than that? So, no, I don't want to give more money to the war machine. I just want to pay it for the education and the rest of the country. I want to support it. So there are so many issues. And the poison your kids are fed. You know, all of these things are in some way affected by lobbyists. And I don't think that business shouldn't have access to politicians. I just think they shouldn't have access to buying them. The legal bribery is not part of any reasonable democratic system. And that's America, and it needs to change. And that's why I Occupy.
You did not grow up wealthy. You grew up in Queens. And when I look at the causes that you support so strongly today, there seems to be a common thread that runs through them. You seem to be the most ardent in your support for causes that give voice to people who don't really have much of a voice, or to give power to people who don't have much of a power, to give influence to people who don't have much money. What are some of the other causes that right now you look at and see people in your mind don't have the power, the voice, the influence that they should have?
You know, the biggest people ain't got shit to do. Well, this is one of my yoga teachers refers to them as people. 40 billion animals birthed, made to be born into suffering every year so they can make you sick, use all the oil, all the grain, all the water, and be the #1 cause of global warming, just the cows farting on their own. More than 2 times all the trains, planes, and automobiles put together, just the cows farting. And all it does is make you sick. So those animals, I'm an animal rights person. You know, that's why I didn't eat lunch with y'all. I was supposed to have lunch. I stopped and had some tofu at the wok place. You know, I'm sure it was cooked in pig's ass, but it was at least tofu. And you know, but the point I make is animals need voice, but they obviously can't speak. You like to treat your dog so nice, but then you chop up other things and wear them as coats. It's unconscious behavior. The collective, unconscious. You know, it's like, you know how, you know, if you think back, you know, in slavery, and the guy would put his foot on the slave, and this is getting rid of my rheumatism. And slave the lady, we all right now? And I mean, that's what they did to me. They did. But it seems so crazy now. No one in their right mind would support this kind of abuse. 6 out of 7 people dying crossing the water. Or whenever we hear, sometimes we're immune still, the bombing of innocent people, the abuse of all these abusive things that humans do. A couple weeks later, what happened in Rwanda? What happened, you know, in Kosovo? You know, the ethnic, all these things seem so crazy to us, but so foreign. But then we get our bearings straight, and we say, that shit is wrong. That's how the bearings should be straight about what we do to the animals. It's the same, the abuse of the animals. Most times they're smarter than these business students, right? They're smart. Not that brains have anything to do with suffering, but you know, they're smart. Suffering. Born into suffering. And then you eat them, make you sick. You know, I mean, I'm much older than you. I don't eat animals. I'm okay. Could outrun you.
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
Put both my feet behind my head. Can you do that? I don't eat animals.
So if you were to reach out,
I'm just saying be vegan. That's what I'm saying.
if you were to go out and explain to business students today, you know, you're a person who's made a lot of money, been highly successful. You still find time to support things that don't make you money, but bring happiness to you. How would you advise students today, whether in business or anywhere else, to create that balance in their lives of seeking what it is that truly makes them happy?
Well, I've been practicing yoga pretty much every day for about 20 years. I went there because there was so many hot, it was crazy. There was no guys in the class. Only hot girls in class. I went to yoga. I started going to yoga regularly. After the first class, I was inspired anyway, besides for the game. But I find that if you take your time to meditate, if you take time to take care of your first chakra, the self, the Mulandhara, they call it, take care of the self, then everything else can come from there. And if you don't take care of the self, if you have noise in your head, the seconds of presence are where all the creativity, all the happiness, everything comes from those seconds of presence. What can we do to extend our seconds of awareness, to be awake? This is where we have to start. So I recommend everyone, my kids twice a day, meditate. Be still, let the thoughts settle. The world, all on the outside, is just a bunch of sickness and noise, but inside is where everything comes from. Anything good that contributes good to the sickness and the noise on the outside has to come from here. So you have to operate from here. And I think that's the first thing I tell you is that I think, and it sounds crazy, we give, I don't know, 50,000, 60,000 kids meditation around the country now through the David Lynch Foundation. But it's important that we learn to sit still every day, let our thoughts settle. Then we can make decisions on our own. We don't have to be sheep. If you sit still, you make decisions. You wouldn't be. You're sitting still so your thoughts can settle, but then thoughts come and go. No still heart wants to enslave another human being or abuse an animal or bomb an innocent person or go along with the mob. Just because people are doing it don't mean shit is right. People do a lot of things that are not good. Not good for your own spirit to participate in, and not just generally not good. And so you can make these choices for yourself if you can think for yourself. You know, in your business, man, sometimes you really get into this. This is what I learned. You have to be able to get outside of that bubble. Freedom from the structure, in some cases, is most critical for your sanity and for your ability to have a happy life.
Here at the UCO College of Business, we are committed to helping students learn so they can become more productive, creative, ethical, and engaged business leaders. And to do that, you have to learn a little bit more about the world, about business practices. To do that, you also have to learn a little bit more about yourself. We were so excited to bring Mr. Simmons with us here today. We were excited to bring Mr. Simmons here today because he brings a unique perspective, someone who's accomplished so much in life, but still commits so much of himself to improving the world in which he finds himself. It's important that we hear different perspectives. It's important that we hear different ideas. It's important that we learn not just from a textbook, but from real life examples, that we not just read about famous business leaders, but we hear from them. So thank you from me, from the College of Business, from the University of Central Oklahoma. Thank you for joining us here today. There will be an opportunity in just a few minutes out across from the bookstore, a book signing. So if you would like a copy of Super Rich and have Mr. Simmons sign it, he will be signing copies for you out there. That's an opportunity to say hello to him at that point. But again, thank you all for being here today, and thanks for helping us live Central.
Thank you.